Joining me now is Lee Saunders, president of the American Federation of State, County, and Municipal Employees Trade Union. Nice to have you on the show again, Lee. And I might also add Lee's a member of our National Board of National Action Network. Let me go right to it. I want to start, Lee, with the last job report that just came out for the month of February. It shows 275,000 jobs were added. That's nearly 80,000 more than what analysts were expecting, with unemployment clocking in now at 3.9%. What are your thoughts on these numbers and the overall strong start of 2024?
It shows that we're moving in the right direction, and the president has developed the programs necessary to support working families all across the country, and that's increasing jobs. I mean, if you look at the number of jobs created since his candidacy, since he became president, it's a little bit over 15 million. So he's doing a great job as far as increasing the number of jobs, and we've just got to continue that momentum into the election.
Now, I know you had a specific interest in the State of the Union address. One of your union members, a 911 dispatcher, Risk Montoya, was there as a guest of Congresswoman Norma Torres. He grew up in Garden Grove, California, the son of a 17-year-old single mother, and never imagined he'd be sitting in the Capitol building during a State of the Union address. And so I want your reaction to President Biden reflecting on the state of the economy during his speech, basically highlighting progress ahead of an election which will test voters' confidence in his economic leadership. Take a listen to this.
America's comeback is building the future of American possibilities, building an economy from the middle out and the bottom up, not the top down, investing in all America, in all Americans, to make sure everyone has a fair shot, and we leave no one behind.
No one behind. As the head of one of the biggest unions in the country, are you satisfied with where the economy is right now?
Well, we still have work to do, but I've got to tell you that I don't think that we could have had another president like Joe Biden who has had the success that we all have had as far as the creation of jobs, as far as moving money into state and local governments with the relief plan, as far as developing new infrastructure programs and projects across the country, as far as supporting the average working man and woman in this country. Joe Biden has done that. He'll continue to do that. We still have work to do, obviously, and people can't forget that. But we've also got to recognize the successes that we've had, so we can build on those successes and move forward with the work that we've got to accomplish in the future.
I want to push you there. I want to quote an op-ed by my MSNBC colleague Stephanie Rule. She writes, quote, "While wages have gone up, from a behavioral economic standpoint, people often credit themselves for getting a raise, but blame the government and especially the president when life costs more. That's the predicament Biden finds himself in going into the election." End of quote. Do you agree with that?
I would say if people are not satisfied with their wages and with their benefits, the best thing they could possibly do is to join a union and not point fingers at anyone. I believe that Joe Biden has been successful in moving this economy forward. We've still got work to do, as I said. He is a strong believer in the power of joining a union. And, you know, those statistics now show that 67% of the American public believe that unions are absolutely necessary in today's environment. And what's a better percentage, Al, is that 88% of young people believe that unions are absolutely necessary. So I would say that if you aren't satisfied with your wages and benefits, then join a union.
Now, at the end of last year, there were 22,000 more public service jobs in the nation than in February 2020, just before the pandemic started. Now, I know that your organization celebrated Black History Month with an event underscoring the importance of public service jobs for workers of color. Can you highlight why this is a win in your view?
Well, first of all, we need help in the public sector. Our numbers have been down for quite a while since the Great Recession, and people are overworked. They're tired. They aren't seeing their families because they're working overtime. So we developed a program within AFSCME to staff the front lines, working with employers, with our governors, and with our state legislatures, and with our mayors, to be creative about advertising the fact that there are jobs available in the public sector. As far as the African American community is concerned, public service and public sector jobs are the pathway to move into the middle class. In many cases, those jobs are unionized and organized across the country. My family, for example, coming from Cleveland, Ohio, my dad was a bus driver, a city bus driver, and he was a proud member of ATU. In Cleveland, you had the bus drivers, you had the postal service, and you had the steel and auto plants. A lot of black families were able to move into the middle class because those were good paying jobs with good benefits. And guess what? They were all represented and they had a union. So black families can take advantage of that, and they have taken advantage of that. And in the public service, we know that there are a lot of black employees, African Americans, rely and depend upon public service, but they also work in public service. So we've got to continue to increase those numbers.